everyone, this is your host with the most, coming at you from coast to coast, and I invite you to this roast. Just kidding. No one's going to get roasted tonight. Hopefully I don't get roasted tonight, but we are going to be having a really good show tonight for sure. We got a lot of good things to be talking about with the Eagles. So if you guys are new, if this is your first time watching the Linc'd In Podcast, make sure you punch that like button for us so we can get more Eagles fans linked in with everything that's going on with the team. Without further ado, let me get my co-host with the second most and the first most of all the co-hosts, Lindy Endzone, in the building, dropping the dime. What's up, Lindy?
Back in it again, man. We just keep it going. Episode 7's underway already. We just keep getting closer to
lucky number 7.
10.
Absolutely.
I know. Crazy.
Absolutely
We
crazy.
got a lot to go over, man. Yeah. This is going to be a good one.
Time goes by while we're, having a good time. So appreciate that. Nightings, thank you for tuning in. Reaper, also thank you for tuning in. Reaper continues his streak. He had a streak of longest in history of being the first person in the chat, and someone broke his streak. It was actually Randall, the handle Sports Talk, and now Reaper, he took that personally, kind of like MJ in The Last Dance. So he's trying to rebuild his streak back up, man. So as you guys can see, I am rocking the Shady McCoy jersey, and we are going to talk about Shady McCoy's career with the Philadelphia Eagles in our newest segment. Last week we did Jeremiah Trotter. This week we're doing Shady McCoy, and he is one of the best Philadelphia Eagles of all time. We all remember a lot of the greatest moments that he had in Philadelphia. One of my personal favorites, guys. It's the Snow Bowl. It's the snow game. When Shady McCoy rushed for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns in the snow. It was unbelievable against the Detroit Lions in 2013. Shady would also win the rushing title that season, rushing for over 1,600 yards that season. And he was phenomenal. He was the first team All-Pro that season. In 6 years in Philadelphia, he rushed for 6,792 yards and 44 touchdowns. And he also caught over 2,200 yards receiving out of the backfield with another 10 touchdowns. So a total of close to 9,000 receiving yards and rushing yards combined, and over 50-plus touchdowns. So he was clearly a weapon, and the Eagles all-time leading rusher. So we all know that Shady was a phenomenal player. And as you guys saw that I did a video about the Nick Foles and Sam Bradford trade, looking back on that trade, we all know what we got to talk about. That's going to be a disgusting topic, but every Eagles fan knows how disgusting it felt to see the day that Shady McCoy was traded to the Buffalo Bills in exchange for Kiko Alonso, who was a injured linebacker at the time. And we have not even heard this man's name in a while. So it's like he disappeared off the earth, and we traded Shady McCoy, who was still in his peak. Shady McCoy with Buffalo, he actually still had 2 seasons over 1,100-plus rushing yards. So he still had a lot of juice left in the tank, and that's pretty much all she wrote with Shady McCoy, but he's definitely one of the greatest all-time Eagles. For those of you guys that are watching, I want you guys to comment and let me know, what is your favorite Shady McCoy game? What's your favorite moments of Shady McCoy? Lindy, I'll let you have the floor now that my big mouth is done running. So go ahead and tell me what stands out for you when you're looking in Shady McCoy's career with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I have to say, you did manage to roast after all. Chip Kelly was the victim in that one. It's well-deserved.
You know what? I should roast. The real people I should roast is all the Eagles fans that after first of all, the season before was when Deshaun Jackson got released, not traded, didn't get any compensation for him, and he actually continued to torch us for years to come. And then even when he was old, he was still torching us with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then also trading LeSean and trading Nick to their new teams, and all these Eagles fans were like, we got to trust Chip Kelly. He's trying to do his thing. He's trying to build his own system. It was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life. I'm like, are you guys smoking something right now? So that's the people that deserve to be roasted. But go ahead, Lindy.
How do you get rid of a running back who puts up almost 3,000 rushing yards in the previous 2 years? Why? Why?
Yeah.
There's no reason for it. 1,607 rushing yards, 2013. The other amazement, a part of him now, I know he's one of the more consensus favorites in terms of running backs in Eagles history. It's either him or B. West. You can't go wrong with either one. Defenses did not have an answer for Shady McCoy. He was a threat in the run. He was a threat in the pass. Much like how we want Miles Sanders to be right now. And it's even funnier that they both got picked at the same number at 53. That's the funny part about it.
And they're both from the same area. Shady's from
Pittsburgh connections, right? Crazy. It's just crazy how things just come full circle again, and now we're waiting for Miles to hopefully take some kind of a step that can remind us of what Shady McCoy used to be, and it's his unbelievable. I mean, in his first 6 years. In 6 years as an Eagle, you're looking at almost 6,800 rushing yards in 6 years for Philly. And
like I said, when he went to Buffalo, he still had a season up to over 1,200 yards and one with 1,100 yards. So he still had juice in the tank.
Why? But
Shady could have at least got 10K if we never traded him. 10K with the Eagles.
Right.
Absolutely no question.
Not a question. What else stands out to me about him? Just the fact that he was able to average over 80 yards a game. I think 4 or 5 times in his career. One of those, 2013, he averaged 100 a game. One of few running backs who was also efficient as a pass catcher. I mean, he was earning numbers that you would see from a wide receiver in terms of catching the football. I think he had, it was 1 year for the Buffalo Bills where he had 50 catches on 57 targets. That's 88%. That's unbelievable. It's such a hard decision between him and Brian Westbrook as your two staples of the franchise in terms of a running back. And like I say, you can't go wrong with either one. But Shady hits home to me more than B. West does. But like I said, there's no problem with it. One of my favorite moments was him being a part of the Nick Foles tying the record for most touchdowns in a single game. His role in that game, Shady, Riley Cooper, D-Jax, everybody just contributing into stomping on the Raiders. The Snowball's an easy one to pick out. Yeah,
Speedy Eagle has another
my
one.
Favorite,
he says, don't forget the Thanksgiving game when he rushed for 159 yards against the Cowboys. Right. One of the best Thanksgivings of my life. For sure.
Right.
Much better than the next season when it was 45 to something against Calvin Johnson completely destroying us. But that's another story. That's another story.
That trinity between him, Foles, and Deshaun Jackson, man.
They should have never got broken up. That was the whole theme of my last video of the Sam Bradford trade. I feel as though
Sick to my stomach.
Nick Foles, while he still was able to deliver the Super Bowl to us, I believe that Nick was on his way to becoming a franchise-level quarterback. Because if you look at it, his numbers were down in 2014, but he was still 6-2 as the starting quarterback of that season. So after Sanchez came in, everything kind of went downhill. So Chip Kelly, he saw that he had all these star players and stuff, and his ego got to his head, and he was just like, you know what, I'm going to show the world that I can, win with anybody. So he traded for Sam Bradford, who had a laughable record as a starting quarterback. It wasn't even close to Foles. In fact, Nick Foles' season, where he was the Pro Bowler with the 27 touchdowns and the 2 picks, Sam Bradford, for his career, never had anything close to that. And if you remember Sam, when he was with us, Sam's lone season with the Philadelphia Eagles, he threw for 19 touchdowns, 14 picks, and he was 7-7 as a starter. So he's epitome of an average QB. And then you trade Shady and you pay DeMarco Murray, and you're running DeMarco Murray out of the shotgun for the whole season. It was the most putrid, disgusting thing. And then you replaced Deshaun Jackson with Jordan Matthews. Like, it was one of the most brutal times of Philadelphia Eagles history in 2015. You know, obviously, everyone remembers the 4-12 season in 2012. I personally feel like we had just had a bunch of injuries, but we still had players that were fun to watch. Who was even fun to watch on the 2015 team? Not a whole lot of guys. So it was disgusting. It was putrid. It was one of the worst eras ever. And it's actually a miracle, which I do have to give Howie Roseman a lot more credit for turning this team around when he did, because it was only 2 years removed from that, keep in mind. Most teams, it would take them years to recover.
What was the only game Sam Bradford was able to hold his hat on? Wasn't it where they beat the Patriots? Wasn't it?
We really didn't even win that game because of Sam Bradford. We won that game because
that was the defense.
Malcolm Jenkins had a pick six, and Darren Sproles
I thought he had 2 picks that game.
So we had 14 points scored, not on offense. So Sam Bradford was terrible. Like, he's one of my most hated Eagles quarterbacks of all time. Like, of all the quarterbacks we could have traded for Nick Foles, Sam Bradford.
Who was the
And the crazy thing is, Nick Foles was actually, they were saying that Sam Bradford, he gets the ball out of his hands quick and all this other stuff, and they were hyping him up. And it was just like, Sam Bradford was not even the best fit of the Chip Kelly offense. Nick Foles was the best fit for the Chip Kelly offense. And he also proved it again when they started running a lot more of like the RPOs like Chip Kelly was running in 2017, like during the playoffs. We were running a lot of the plays that Chip used to have. And we won a championship because of it. So it's kind of like, Chip, what are you doing, bro? Like, you said that this guy was supposed to be a better fit than Nick Foles for the team. And DeMarco Murray was supposed to be a better fit for the team than Shady McCoy, which was utterly ridiculous. So it's just kind of like, Chip Kelly, like, how are you this much of an idiot, bro? I just don't understand.
Let's make a downhill runner go east and west. Yeah, good idea. Good idea. Wasn't that the year though? Wasn't that the overtime win against Dallas? Jordan Matthews game-winning touchdown in overtime.
Yeah, I remember that game too.
Right. Yeah, I thought there was 2 games where Bradford was kind of like, okay. No, got that overtime victory against Dallas, and then the Patriots game where you got carried by the defense.
I can't help but feel that obviously Nick Foles' career is what it is now, but I just feel like if he never went to the Rams, he never was stuck with Jeff Fisher, I think that drastically messed up his career. I do. I mean, I feel like if he was only here for 3 seasons before he came back in 2017, and he stayed for a couple more years. But I do feel that Foles was on his way to being a franchise quarterback. And as far as Shady, I mean, you were talking about running DeMarco Murray as a north and south runner. Shady McCoy was known for, like, going east and west. So why would you – if it's not broke, like, don't fix it. And Shady was still at his peak, so it just didn't make any sense. And Grizz chimes into the chat. He says, Chip Jelly knows nothing about fit with his fat Winnie the Pooh looking ass. Yes, he did look exactly like Winnie the Pooh, but every Eagles fan hates Chip Kelly. The LeSean McCoy
should have stayed in college.
It's one of the most disgusting trades that we can even remember. So, tough times, but Shady McCoy, he did retire as a Philadelphia Eagle last season. They honored him in the Kansas City Chiefs game and everything like that. But, yeah, great player. Definitely miss him and have nothing but good memories of when he was in the Eagles uniform. So, anyway, guys, we're going to go to break right now. But first, we're going to give you a message from our sponsors.
I'm running, running like my hands on fire, and I don't intend to stop even when my legs grow tired. And I got a message from Colorado straight from Texas, captured most of me, just let me be.
So everyone check out the link in the description. Yeti Coolers is an official sponsor now of the channel. It's the summertime. It's a great time to go out to the beach. So Yeti Coolers, best coolers on the market, without a doubt, guys. So now we are going to actually be getting into some more current stuff. We're going to be discussing the Philadelphia Eagles training camp, which is upcoming, which is going to be starting on July 26th. So we're about a month or so removed from getting back to training camp, and we got to discuss which players are on the bubble and who's that bubble going to pop on. You know, there's a lot of guys that you got to question. Are these guys going to make the roster? Are they going to get cut? I don't know. I will start. I'm really feeling Greg Ward is on the bubble when it comes to this team. I love Greg Ward. But as far as the moves that the team made, obviously the acquisition of A.J. Brown obviously moves everyone down the depth chart by default. So not really his fault there. But guys like Zach Pascal, bringing in guys like Devin Allen, guys like Britton Covey, who are going to be a little bit just more dynamic than Greg Ward is going to be able to be on special teams. So when it comes to that, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like between him and Rager and Zach Pascal, that's a competition between those three that I think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to. I do not see us keeping more than 6 wide receivers on the final 53-man roster. If we even keep 6, I mean, we might only keep 5. You know, I would be very surprised if we kept more than that. So Greg Ward is definitely a player that I've enjoyed having on the team because he's just been consistent. He hasn't been flashy, but when he's been brought in and asked to do things, he does them, and he's consistent. So I am just feeling with some of the moves that they made, Zach Pascal being the teacher's pet of Sirianni, and bringing in guys like Devin Allen, who's an Olympic sprinter. They're trying to get more dynamic on special teams. Greg Ward just doesn't have like that dynamic ability as a punt returner, which is why I think he is going to be maybe possibly on the bubble and not making the team.
Right. I think the only difficulty there, if you want to put Greg Ward in the conversation, is that sets him apart. What sets him apart right now is that he's still able to contribute offensively, not just on special teams, and that's something that we're going to have to figure out between Devin Allen and Britton Covey, is that if they do have value from an offensive standpoint, if they're able to run their routes consistently, if they're able to get their timing down with the quarterback, et cetera, that's something that Greg Ward has. And so if you're going to put him on the bubble, then that means you would have to trust guys like that to be able to come in a pinch if necessary and go out there and run a route on the offense. Because to be honest, I don't know if the Eagles are just going to keep somebody on the 53 just for special teams. Like you need to have a little more of a contributing factor than that. So I think going forward, that's one advantage Greg Ward has right now, especially when you put Jalen Reagor in the conversation. Yeah, those two are in similar positions that they have a little bit of an advantage between Britton Covey and Devin Allen, who are very explosive from a speed standpoint. But if that's all you're going to really keep them on the roster for, is for 2 guys that can run blisteringly quick in a straight line,
I don't think both of those guys are going to make the roster. If I only see one of them between Covey and Devin Allen, but as far as with Jalen Reagor, it's kind of like what Grizz was saying as far as with Howie Roseman and having an ego because Rager's a first-round pick. If it's up to me, I am keeping Greg over Jalen Reagor all day because we've seen Greg outperform Jalen Reagor last season, but I just don't know if he's going to do that with Ward being undrafted and Reagor obviously being a first-round pick.
Right. I mean, as long as you don't keep Ward to have a consistent role on special teams, because special teams last year was arguably the worst.
Last season was so weird for Greg Ward because I just feel like every time he wasn't getting that much snaps, but I feel like every time he got snaps, he was scoring a touchdown. It was the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, he may not have been used correctly by Sirianni and Steichen, and that's fine. They have, they're getting their offense together. They got some things to work around, but like I said, I mean, Ward just it sucks because he really doesn't offer.
Ward could be better than Pascal.
He just doesn't offer much value on special teams. I mean, he was part of what coined the phrase "fair catch Ward."
In the first place.
I don't even think it's close that special teams was the worst position group last year in terms of kickoff and punt returns. Man, like you need to have some kind of explosiveness there because sometimes that's what blows the door open on football games if your offense and defense is a little bit stagnant and you need to develop some kind of spark. And if you're going to be slacking there, that could be a problem going forward. But like I said, between Britton Covey and Devin Allen, if one of those two, now granted, if you're not going to maintain both on the 53, that I think they're the primary competition between each other. But if it's going to be one of them two, they need to offer something offensively, not just in special teams, because I don't think they're going to make the 53 just through special teams.
And to your point, Lenny, when you were saying, the special teams unit, kickoff and punt return was one of the weakest positions. I think that's why they brought those guys in that you named, like Devin Allen and Covey, because they want to be more dynamic at that position. And Greg Ward, it doesn't even really make sense because they had Greg Ward as, the punt returner. So it's just it was just kind of weird that they were doing that because Ward's a good player, but does he have like that crazy kickoff return special teams type of speed? Like, no, he doesn't. So it's just like they didn't know who to put back there, so they were putting Greg Ward back there, and it was just really weird.
I mean, neither does Boston Scott really to a degree, but he does a little bit more than Ward does. It's in the case of Boston, there's nothing really sustainable there, being that he has more value as a running back than he does as a returner on special teams. So that's another kind of gateway that you want to open, is to limit your offensive guys a little bit, keep them in their primary responsibilities. So everybody wins at that point. But in terms of the roster bubble, Reagor is an easy punching bag. Arcega-Whiteside's an easy punching bag, being that he went through this position change. I can also put Tyree Jackson in that category because it depends on how he comes back from. I think he had an ACL tear, so it depends how he comes back from that. He had back issues. I mean, they just drafted
the third highest paid Jeremiah because Smitty went in the top 10 and Reagor went with like the 20th something pick. I'm not 100% sure on that though.
Yeah, but
is a week old Burger King Whopper Jr. Not even a Whopper Jr. And that might be pushing it. Yeah, I mean, I think Reagor stays, despite how a lot of Eagles fans might say, and like Jeremiah was saying, like he is a first round pick, so it is kind of like a business move. You're not just going to like even Marcus Smith, one of the worst Eagles players of all time. They didn't even cut him after 2 seasons. They cut him after 3 seasons. So if Reagor comes in and he still sucks this season, then yeah, maybe they might cut him after that season. But I just don't see Reagor not making the team. The only scenario I see not being cut but possibly a trade to a team that maybe has a weaker receiving core, and Rager gets a fresh start. That's a higher possibility than I think the Eagles saying, you know what, this guy's just not good enough. We're going to cut him. I just don't see that happening.
Right. I mean, you can't afford to just flat out cut a first round pick, especially only after, I think, 3 years for Rager right now. Much the same with Andre. Much the same with Andre Dillard. Like they're trying to figure this out with him being offensive line as a premium
last year.
Because offensive line's a premium position. So between those two players, they're going to keep Rager because they want to see if he can make his way back up the depth chart, and if it doesn't work out in his favor, they still want to try and build some value in him. So if he's not a fit for the team anymore, he may be a fit for a team elsewhere to help give him a fresh start, being that, well, he's already in deep waters with not just the fan base, but his position, his positioning in the wide receiver room. All things considered, he's not in a position to get cut right now. The Eagles can't afford to do that after giving up a first round pick to select this guy without beating the dead horse. I'm not going to say it because we already know it to this point, but. Yeah, they're not going to cut him. They're going to try and get some value back out of him, see if he can climb his way up the depth chart again. And if it doesn't end up working, I think a last resort for him, being his short area quickness, he can maybe make his way into the slot. But if that doesn't work, he could find value elsewhere and help give him a fresh start.
So in terms of if you had to choose one player, Lindy, who are you going with as far as, you think this is the end of the road? Whatever player. What's the first player that comes to your head? And any of you guys in the comment section, if you want to chime in as well. Voice crack.
I would have to say Arcega-Whiteside. I think I think he is even easier to knock out than Rager, being that with him going through a positional change, that's kind of a last resort for a player if they can't find a role on a team. And being that the tight end position is top heavy right now with Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll is continuing to work into his own. They just drafted Grant Calcaterra, who is another Hurts connection in the 6th round. Tyree Jackson's trying to nurse his way back from injury. So, being that the Eagles are not going in the direction of undersized tight ends anymore, that puts Arcega-Whiteside too far on the outside looking in. And, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he'll find his way on the practice squad. I have no idea, but he's for sure not making the final 53 because at most, the Eagles are probably going to keep three tight ends. I think Calcaterra inks it out, edges out Tyree Jackson. So, there's no room for Arcega-Whiteside there.
Eagles fans, we got 5 people in chat. You guys ready for this?
Oh, no.
Awkward silence. Okay, and we're going to stop it right there. But yeah, I hear you 100% on that with JJ, because JJ's going to tight end. And I thought at first that it might be a good move for him because while he kind of sucks as a player, well, not even kind of sucks, he does suck as a wide receiver. The one thing he was actually good at was blocking.
Good Lord, Grizz.
He's blocking receivers. And he's blocking DBs and stuff. As a tight end, you're going to have to block some some defensive linemen. You're going to have to get some linebackers. And I don't think that he has the strength to withstand doing that for like the whole season. So, yeah.
Jack Stoll already does that better than he does.
Tim Tebow, Tim Tebow tried it out, and that was actually a disgrace. If you've seen him playing in the preseason, that was pretty much the first domino to fall of the dysfunctional Urban Meyer era of Jacksonville. But good luck to Doug Peterson. Maybe he can not be as terrible as he was. But anyway, man, pretty interesting guys with training camp coming up. There definitely is some guys that's on the bubble. But we're going to get into some interesting stuff here. But first, we do have another ad from one of our sponsors, or other sponsors.
Gentlemen and ladies, the Gauntlet Podcast as well as the Linc'd In Podcast are both brought to you by Fanatics, the best place to shop for the freshest and latest fan gear and team memorabilia. Speaking of memorabilia, as you guys can see on the wall here, we got the autographed Brandon Graham, we got the autographed Nick Foles, Philly special, got to rep the Super Bowl, and up here at the top, we got the OG, we got Dr. J in the house, we got Dr. J in the building, one of the best Sixers of all time. Autographed memorabilia is on sale right now for 30% off on Fanatics. Go and get it while it's hot. Get you some nice autographed pictures. Frame them up. Hang them up on the wall. Get the man cave popping. Use promo code FREESHIPPED or 24SHIP for free shipping on your next item. Let's get back to the show.
All right, guys. Yeah, make sure you guys check out the links in the description. We will receive a small donation for your whatever you purchase. For example, if you purchase a Jalen Hurts jersey, we get a small donation for the channel. Really helps the channel out a lot. But we are going to get into preseason predictions for season awards for the season. Not league MVP, not defensive player of the year for the league, but in terms of the Eagles, who's going to be the Eagles MVP? Who's going to be the rookie of the year for us? Who's going to be the defensive player of the year for us? Let's start it off. Let's start it off with MVP. There's a few choices that I was thinking of. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is going to have to be the guy that wins this one. We know what Jalen brings to the table already, what he did in his first season, his first season as a starter actually last year. Rushing for over 700 yards and 10 touchdowns, and then passing for 3,000 yards. We need to see those passing numbers climb up a little bit. I see Jalen passing from 3,500 yards, 22 to 25 passing touchdowns, and then I think he's going to get us another 500-600 yards on the ground. And if he does that, I think that's sufficient enough to justify Jalen Hurts is taking the next step as the quarterback. He is leading this team to where they need to go. And it just might justify keeping him around for another year, depending on how far they go into the playoffs. But should Jalen Hurts lead him on some type of a playoff run, even if he only wins one playoff game, that might just be enough to justify keeping him as a starter. I see Jalen Hurts proving a lot of the naysayers wrong this year, and he's my pick for the Eagles MVP without a question.
I mean, who else are you? Who else are you really going to go with here?
Maybe someone like Jason Kelce. He's going to be like one of my other choices. Because if we lose,
I had that in the back.
Cam Jurgens going to step in and be able to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure about that.
I honestly had Kelce in the back of my head just because of what he has meant to this football team for how many years, in him just being the number one, like the all-time conductor of that offensive line. Like he is what makes them work. I can't imagine an offensive line without him. So let us hope Cam Jurgens takes in all that he can from this man and Jeff Stoutland. So we don't miss a beat, but it's kind of hard not to. It's kind of hard not to select Hurts with everything that the Eagles have done to put him in a position to succeed. And it is fair to say that he's probably not going to rush for as many yards because you're going to want to see him throw the football a little bit more. There's too many pass targets for him not to go through his progressions outside of the first read. I mean, you're going to have A.J. Brown. You're going to have Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal in red zone situations. Grant Calcaterra might be out there at time or two. The continued improvement of Jack Stoll. You just go down the list of what they were able to do, from last year to this year. And you got Isaac Seumalo coming back healthy. He's going to help. He's going to help out on that right side and keep Landon Dickerson where he belongs next to Jordan Mailata. There's so many positives working in tandem with each other. That makes Jalen Hurts an overwhelming favorite to be the offensive MVP, at least for this football team, because really we can put receivers or tight ends, we can put anyone in that conversation, even at the running back room. But it's up to the quarterback to keep these guys up to speed, to get them going. I mean, they can run perfect routes all day, but if the quarterback does not see them and get them the ball in a timely manner, then it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. I think it's, in all fairness, I think Hurts is easily the offensive selection here.
So we're both in agreement with Jalen Hurts as the offensive MVP. Let's go to defensive MVP, and you guys can also chime in the comment section if you want to be a part of this debate as well. So defensive MVP, I think that there is a lot of choices that we could go with this team. I mean, you obviously have Big Play Slay, who's coming off another Pro Bowl season. Very good player. He's got James Bradbury playing the opposite side of him. Maybe it makes his job a little bit easier. He's definitely a good choice. But for me, my choice is Haason Reddick coming back to Philly and putting on for the hometown. He was at Temple University. Don't forget the Temple Owls. They play their football games at Lincoln Financial Field. So he's very familiar with, playing at that stadium. He played some really good football games for Temple when he was in college. He's coming back there, and I feel like this is just different for him. He's going back there. Obviously, he was with Carolina. He was with the Arizona Cardinals. He had some good seasons with them as well. But this is just completely different. I think there's more of a motivational factor for him. And if you guys have been following the channel, you guys know how much I've been saying Haason Reddick is arguably the best signing of the entire offseason. Him and A.J. Brown's probably neck and neck, actually, because you're getting a guy that can bring in double-digit sacks in his sleep. The last 2 seasons, he's been well over 20 sacks for the last 2 years. 20 sacks combined for the last 2 years. So he got 12 last year, and I think he had 11 the year before. Him and Josh Sweat, I think those two guys playing together, they're going to feed off of each other as well. It's also going to make the job for Fletch and the boys in the middle a whole lot easier. Haason Reddick, my pick for the defensive MVP. And Jeremiah agrees. He says Reddick for defensive player, and he's got Goddard for offensive MVP. Nice. And Grizz is going with Devontae Smitty for offensive player MVP, and then he's got Josh Sweat. Definitely some good choices, guys.
Could it be possible for a rookie to have both defensive rookie of the year and defensive MVP at the same time? Hot take.
You're going with Jordan?
Yeah. I want Jordan Davis to get it, personally.
Okay.
For what he just the overall overwhelming physique that he has possessed since the collegiate level at Georgia. What he was able to provide for everyone else on that defensive line, as from an intimidation standpoint, and attracting as many offensive linemen as he did. If you have that kind of impact player on your D line, then of course that makes everybody better, because it just opens an endless amount of opportunities to just suffocate each and every quarterback that you're going to face, where it comes to the point where, okay, well, the offensive coordinator in tandem with the quarterback, they got to figure out where they're going to have to slide the protection. And if they can't manage Jordan Davis properly, well, you got Javon Hargrave, then Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham's coming back. You mentioned Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. Let's put him in there because we're expecting big things from him. From a run defense perspective, Marlon Tuipulotu is
say his last name again.
Tuipulotu is the correct pronunciation.
He's like the defensive version of Big V.
Right.
Never say his name.
Right. So bringing up Marlon's name will be a good segue into the comeback player for me. He's also my comeback player, Marlon Tuipulotu, only because the Eagles have some pretty big expectations out of him. Yeah, last year was unfortunate. He missed out because of a bad hamstring injury. A sixth-round pick coming out of USC. He was supposed to be one of their more premier run stoppers behind a Brandon Graham, behind Milton Williams, because he has that capability as well, and he's a little bit underrated as a pass rusher. So, but in the grand scheme, like in the overall picture. My pick for that's Jordan Davis. Like he's just,
I'm with Chris on that one.
It's so he just has an aura about him that I'm waiting in just a high amount of anticipation to see what he is going to do on an NFL field.
All right, so you're going with Marlon as your comeback player of the year?
Yes.
Okay. You guys have been – anyone who's been watching Linc'd In Podcast since the launch knows who my choice is for the comeback player of the year. I have said it multiple times. I am sick and tired of the slander on Fletcher Cox's name, and it's still June. And I still love Cox, baby. I still love Cox. It's June, so it's okay for me to still say that.
Pause.
So, no pause.
Jeez.
Seriously, Cox is going to show up and he's going to show out. Like I said, just bringing in all these guys that we brought in. We've obviously brought in Hassan Reddick, and Josh Sweat is still here. He's still getting better. Every year he keeps climbing and climbing. So I think the dynamic of those two guys are double-digit sack guys. And you can't forget about all the other guys on the team. You still have Hargrave. You still have Milton Williams. You still have Marlon, like you just said. So we have a lot of guys on the D-line that can make stuff happen. And then the linebackers is one of the most improved positions on the entire team. Those guys are going to make plays. They're going to make it – all the team around Fletch is going to make it easier for him to go back to the old Fletch that we're used to knowing. And we're going to see Fletch really show some real penetration and be a big part of this D. So I'm very excited to see what Fletch is going to do, and he's going to prove all the haters wrong. I'm going with Fletch, comeback player of the year. Book it.
Right, and let's make it clear here, Jim. Now, comeback player of the year, offensive MVP, defensive MVP, whatever else you want to throw out there. For those type of awards, there's really not an end-all be-all in terms of qualification as to why you are named that. Being like I mentioned, Marlon Tuipulotu. He can very well just be a comeback player because of what he's asked to do. What he's asked to do from like a responsibility standpoint, like how efficient he is, just based on his expectations and stopping a run. Does he improve as a pass rusher? Does his snap count start to get elevated a little bit? Does he stand out in the rotation? What you are able to do at your position, and if you're able to make an impact where you are noticed, then yeah. So I mean. And that's not to say that there is
exactly what I'm saying, Jeremiah.
Right.
Hashtag no pause.
And here I thought we were going to be PG on some of these episodes.
Rated R. Kids, time to go to bed. It's almost 9:00. You guys should be asleep.
Right.
Even though it's summertime.
Oh,
so guys,
no.
So that's it for the positional awards and everything like that. We will come back to this at the end of the season and see like how many of them we got right and wrong. So that's going to be something really interesting. The last thing that we're going to cover here in the last about 15 minutes or so we have here in the show, former Eagles coach Dick Vermeil, who spent 7 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. He did win a Super Bowl with the Rams. He did coach the Eagles to a Super Bowl in 1980 with Jaws as the starting QB. So in terms of like all our coaches, obviously Doug was the one to win us a Super Bowl. Andy Reid is the one that was here for 14 seasons, won 100-plus games. So in terms of the coaches, I think that, a lot of people when it comes to the Eagles are not really remembering Dick Vermeil, but he was a very good football coach, and he is going into the Hall of Fame, and deservedly so. But he did say something very interesting. Even though he did win a Super Bowl with the Rams, Coach Dick Vermeil says he is going in as a Philadelphia Eagle. Here's what the former Eagles coach and future Hall of Fame or soon-to-be Hall of Fame inductee had to say.
I'm going in as an Eagle. I'm going in. You select which team you go in representing number one. Yes, I coach the Chiefs. Yes, I coach the Rams, and I love those experiences. But Philadelphia is my home team. It's where I live, and that's where I deeply identify with the community.
Absolutely great stuff there from Dick Vermeil. So obviously he says that he really resonates with the Philadelphia Eagles. That was like his true home. That's where he has, a lot of great memories, and that's what he identifies with the most, the Philadelphia Eagles. And, being a part of this great town in Philly is definitely a great sports town, and a lot of coaches and players love playing and coaching in Philadelphia. So I'm actually not too surprised. I'm a little bit surprised just based off of the fact that, he coached one of the greatest offenses in history with the Rams, the greatest show on turf with Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk and Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt and those boys. Definitely a great offenses that was explosive to watch. But the man loves Philadelphia. You can take the man out of Philly, but you can't take the Philly out of the man. Dick Vermeil, major respect for basically saying, you know what? I love the Philadelphia Eagles. I love my time in Philly. So, in my opinion, I'm going in as a Philadelphia Eagles. So, give a big prop to Coach Dick Vermeil for that.
Right, and it's a great example of where context really overrules the numbers on paper. Granted, he didn't finish with a great record amongst 3 franchises as a head coach. He is barely above 500 in terms of a record, but it's more about the context behind it and what he was able to do, especially in terms of the Eagles and the Rams. And these are 2 football teams before he showed up that haven't had a playoff appearance in almost a decade, and he was able to do that. Got the Eagles to I think as best as an 11-5 record, got them to Super Bowl 15, I think, against the Oakland Raiders, even though they unfortunately lost, but he still got them there. Greatest show on turf, like you mentioned, 13-3 that year. I think he had another season where he went 12-5, and then he goes to Kansas City in his last go around with the Chiefs and turned them around. Got a couple of playoff appearances out of them. I think he finished 6-5 in the playoffs. So. All around, like I said, this is, context overrules, the hard numbers statistically. And, that's just part of why he's, that's part of his induction on the impact that he has made on 3 different franchises and being able to turn them around the way he was able to do it.
Absolutely, man. So looking forward to seeing him, go to Canton, Ohio, and getting his enshrinement ceremony out of the way and all that type of stuff, because the man deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. So big stuff for Dick Vermeil. Definitely looking forward to seeing everything that happens. With that, we do have a little bit of extra time here, so let's just go around and let's discuss who do we think is going to be leading in certain, stats. Like, let's start with the sack leader. Who do you think's going to be sack leader of the Philadelphia Eagles?
That's a tough one because I mean you can put Josh Sweat up there, you can put Hassan Reddick up there, but really I think it's going to be a battle between those two, depending on how BG bounces back from his Achilles injury. Fletch I think has been up and down in terms of sack numbers. He's not entirely known as being much of a nose tackle that's going to sack the quarterback.
Right.
He's more about controlling the line, much like Jordan Davis is. But when he's asked to do it, there's no problems at all. I think I can put Javon Hargrave in that category too. So I think for me it would be between Sweat, Hargrave, and Hassan Reddick. If I had to choose one, I think it would be Reddick topping Hargrave. Not no slight to Josh Sweat, but in the situation between both of those players, you have, like you said, Hassan Reddick is coming home, so he's gonna really show out for the Link. This is where he wanted to be. So there's extra motivation there, but that is also shared with Javon Hargrave, who's coming into a contract year, as maybe unless the Eagles get an extension done early, as we know them to do so before the market. Geez, what am I saying? Before the market inflates, they like to get their guys. They like to get their guys paid early before it starts to balloon. So I think it'll be between Reddick and Hargrave in terms of sack leaders. It's too tough for me to pick between the two of them.
All right, well, I might get roasted for this take, but I'm just gonna say it.
Uh-oh.
The 2022
Sorry, yeah.
sack leader of the Eagles is going to be Derek Barnett. No,
you are not serious at all. You are not serious.
Nope. Well, Derek Barnett is going to not have the pressure on him, so blah, blah, blah. Like, no, don't give me that crap. Derek Barnett is probably barely going to be even playing. I think that it is going to be between Reddick or Josh Sweat. I think it's pretty much an easy answer with Reddick because Reddick's proven it. This is really who he is. Last 2 seasons, as I mentioned earlier, he's over double digits the last 2 seasons, and he's ascending and he's climbing and growing into that player that he has become. So Reddick definitely going to be a choice there. But Josh Sweat, I wouldn't be surprised if it was him either, because what we've seen from Josh every single year, his sack numbers are going up. He had 8.5 sacks or 7.5 sacks last season. So just on the basic math and the progression that we've seen from him, it would only make sense that he climbs up into double digits. But in terms of the team, I can see a lot of these guys getting a lot of sacks. I could probably only see 2 or 3 guys getting double digits, but I can see a lot of the other guys getting 6, 7, 8, 9 sacks, if you will. And then collectively as a unit, I think the Eagles defense is going to be close to the top of the league. Definitely going to be in the top 5 in terms of sacks. But let's go to offense now, because we've talked
for defensively. Do you realize what the biggest thing that could potentially hold them back is?
No, I don't. What is it? Jonathan
Gannon.
Oh yeah,
right.
He's an idiot.
I was just thinking. I was honestly thinking about it. Like, so long
That's actually true, though. Like, you're not wrong at all.
When you talk about Hassan Reddick, so long as Jonathan Gannon watches his tape for the Carolina Panthers over the Arizona Cardinals, we may get those sack numbers, because Arizona did not know how to use him, and it wasn't until he went to Carolina that we started seeing the Hassan Reddick that we paid over $40 million for. So let's just take a deep breath and ask Gannon, like, dude, come on.
If you have this much of guys that's capable of getting sacks and you don't blitz and you play like all these stupid like defenses, and it doesn't make it like this guy should be fired if that happens. So
do not put him out in coverage, please. Don't.
Like Jonathan Gannon, even a stupid idiot couldn't screw this up. Besides someone like, I don't know, Billy Davis. If he does this, if he screws this up, Gannon is in the same category as Billy Davis. I'm marking that take down. You guys can rip that if you want. Clip that up if you want. But offensively, I think that we need to have a serious debate of who's going to be the leading receiver on the team. The top three candidates, clearly A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Who do you see taking the crown between those three guys?
I think it's going to ultimately depend on who Hurts makes his security blanket. Much like the argument I made in the last video, I was talking about how the best friend chemistry factor and how that creates a over reliability. Sometimes we've already seen it with Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz. Although it was fantastic at times, there were cases where you would see other receivers wide open. Granted, yes, I know there were very limited cases of that because of the lack of talent at times that Carson has had. But there were instances where Carson just continued to zone in on Zach Ertz, and it just made it easier for the defense to double him, take him out of the game because they knew Carson would not throw to anyone else. So now,
I hope that
now it's a
different team.
Now it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. Even in the case of him and A.J. Brown, which is ultimately going to depend on how well they click on the football field. Despite them being best friends off the field and everything, and it's going to depend how well they click together. We're already seeing them on Instagram. AJ Brown's getting excited. He's posting stuff on Twitter and everything, and it's getting us riled up. But you know what? And Jeremiah's got a great case.
More yards and Brown more.
Right. Jeremiah's got a great case for Dallas Goedert. I mean, every time he gets the ball in his hands, he's virtually unstoppable. He's not easy to tackle like Zach Ertz was. Although he's not as good of a route runner, that's one thing he is improving on. But really, I think it's going to be between him and Devontae Smith. Even with Devontae Smith as a rookie last year, no defense really had an answer for him. I mean, every single game there was at least a stretch of there was at least a stretch of more than half of that game offensively where he was wide open.
I actually think he's better at getting open than A.J. Brown is.
Right. Well, the difference there is A.J. Brown's more of a physical receiver. He's going to use his body to his advantage, where Devontae has to use a lot more finesse. He has to use speed. He has to use an explosive quickness that he's got to where he has a twitch in his route running to really throw these corners off. I mean, defenses really didn't have an answer for Smith, and the only reason he was limited at times is when Hurts wasn't throwing him the football. So, man, I don't know. It feels like a hot take,
man. Like between those three,
it feels like a hot take because of the amount of talent that we have now. Like you can't go wrong with.
What if it's like Les or something? That would be crazy. If it was like none of those three guys, that would be absolutely crazy. But I think it's so hard to rank.
Yeah,
like
it is.
I think it's going to be really close between all three of them. But if I had to rank the order that I think it's going to go down, I'm buying all the stock. I'm buying all the hype on second year Devontae Smith. I think he leads the team in receiving yards. I think Goedert will. I think he will have the most receiving touchdowns, though. However, I think AJ second most yards, Goddard third most yards. So that would be my order: Smitty,
That's
AJ,
fair.
and Goddard.
That's fair. Yeah.
I think Goddard is going to have the most receiving touchdowns because that's a big dude in the red zone. They're going to get him the ball a lot. I think they're going to try to get him involved down there at that part of the field. So Goddard, I see him leading us in receiving touchdowns, but definitely going to be a tight race between those three. And, that's the good thing about it. I mean, you have three guys on the team that you can say, yeah, these guys can go out and they can cook and they can do their thing. So definitely have
no excuses for Hurts, though. No excuses for Hurts at all.
And Jeremiah says he's going to have the most receptions as well. Do y'all think AJ and Devontae will both get over 1,000 yards? I do. I think if Hurts takes the progression and takes the next step, he's obviously improving himself as a passer. Both of these guys are more than capable as a receiver of getting to that level. Smitty, we saw him get 900 and something yards last season. I think he continues to climb and get better. Smitty will get over 1,000. AJ, he's pretty much been over 1,000 most of his career. He got injured last season, so he did not get that 1,000 yards mark, but he still had, close to 800 and something yards as well. So I think they're definitely more than capable. And I could see Goddard, getting that 700 to 800 yards, but getting, the most receiving touchdowns on the team by far.
Didn't Dallas accomplish didn't the Cowboys accomplish where they had three receivers at 1,000 yards?
Well,
I thought they did.
Speedy and Cooper, yeah. I definitely think that happened at least at one point. I don't know if it was last year or at some other point.
Is it fair to say that could happen for Smitty, AJ, and Goddard?
I think it'll be close.
Progresses as the passer we want him to be.
If he really, really progresses as a passer, then absolutely. Because
I'm saying,
there's no question that all three of them can easily get over 1,000. No question.
If Hurts completes at least 65% of his passes, then I think those three can hit at least 1,000 yards.
If he passes for more than 3,500 yards, absolutely all three of them could get 1,000.
Right. And it's not. I don't think it's a terrible stretch either. I mean, you look at now. Granted, Hurts is not the thrower that Ryan Tannehill is, for as much disrespect as Tannehill gets from time to time. I mean, last year he had a completion percentage, I think, of about 66 or 67%. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that Hurts should be capable of hitting 64, 65, because that could very well be enough to get his trio of receivers the yardage that we hope for them to earn. So, I mean, yeah, but it's a big question mark right now. It's a big question mark, but it's a good problem to have.
I think we're not going to know the answer to this question until we see them play during the regular season, and we're going to see which one of those guys is going to be getting the highest. Who's going to be the headliner of the Eagles offense? It's going to be Goddard. It's going to be AJ. It's going to be Smitty. Which one of those three guys is going to be? We don't know yet. So that's a question that is going to be answered once we see it happen. But we had another great episode tonight, guys. I really appreciate everyone that tapped in tonight in the comment section. Jeremiah, Grizz, Joey, Randall, you guys have pretty much become regulars here every Friday night at 8 Eastern.
Big thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys for sure. So shout out to all you guys. We will be back very, very soon next week for another episode 8. And with that being said, this is
even more official this week
with the co-host. Yes, and you guys can see the actual LinkedIn podcast logo is actually on the screen. Your host with the most and your co-host with the most, with another episode in the books. And we'll see you guys next time. All right.